Okay, the first one, Ric Kearbey, our newest meteorological hire at CAC. Ric is a senior scientist at CAC and has spent most of his career as a TV meteorologist and climate specialist presenting the nightly forecast on television news, including 6 years on 10 Tampa Bay, the CBS affiliate here in Florida, covering hurricanes such as Irma and Ian. Ric has also presented the weather and weather stories nationally for Good Morning America in New York and ABC World News Tonight globally. His forecasts have been trusted and used at games for the St. Louis Cardinals, the Super Bowl, and he has covered numerous NASA rocket launches. Ric's biggest concern about leaving TV news is that his anchorman hair might not be fully appreciated. Ric has an enviable social media following of over 80,000 Facebook followers. Yeah. And reaches millions of people each month for CAC. Let's put all of our eyes on Ric as he talks about the 3 I's, Irma, Ian, and Idalia, and the lessons learned. Take it away, Ric.
Thank you, Elizabeth. This hair can hold up in a Cat 5 hurricane, by the way, and that is scientifically tested. So my job today is going to be to stir up some bad memories, unfortunately. I'm going to look at what we learned from hurricanes Irma and Idalia. You mentioned I covered locally on television. Irma and Ian, and then last year, Idalia, which was an incredible storm and something that, was not a direct hit here, but we felt it, emotionally. We felt it financially locally too. So we'll talk more about that. But we're really excited you guys are all here because one thing Bob and I do on a daily basis is we really are trying to help everyone in our community deal with climate adaptation. So we really have to adapt to what's happening, and there's so much happening locally. Bob and I often say we're kind of at a ground zero here because we really are as much as anybody in the world. Most of our part of Florida is 5 feet or less above sea level. We're right here on the water. Sea levels are rising. Temperatures are warming. We really felt that last year, and we're going to feel it probably even more this year. So it's something we do have to adapt to. And so education is a big part of that. And we do a lot of presentations and speeches. And this is one we're really excited about because the information is so important. And we hope this sticks with everybody and we grow your knowledge a little bit so we can all make better decisions as we go. So let's get in to Irma and Ian and Idalia, the ice storms, we call it. The eyes have it, Bob has said, right, Bob? So they'll always be remembered as destructive hurricanes, these storms. And a lot of people are like, what is it with the ice storms? Why do they seem so destructive? And really, it's about the timing because the alphabet is the order of the names for the hurricane season. So we start with A, then B, then C. By the time you get to I, we're often getting toward the peak hurricane season. So that's why these storms have fallen typically during the peak season when they're the strongest. And that's why these storms have been so devastating. So often about the timing. Now, the timing is changing a little bit because the hurricanes, season starting a little earlier. And so we'll have to watch that over time. But there's a great look at the eye of Hurricane Ian. It's on your brochure. This image is so stunning. This is a satellite image, and you can see the eye right there. There's Sanibel Island. There's Naples. And that storm right there has incredible wind. And if you look at that, just so you know, and I'll kind of show this right here. This part of the storm, we call this the right front quadrant, but this is the part right here that has that onshore flow, the storm surge, because the winds are wrapping around like this. So it's right here. This storm just getting hammered with storm surge. And as the storm goes up, if it goes this way, we got to watch this part of the storm. Up here, winds are blowing like this. So it's actually offshore, winds blowing east to west. So that can blow water away from the coast. That kind of wind in a strong hurricane can empty water out of bays like Sarasota Bay and Tampa Bay. We've seen that happen, and I'll show you some pictures of that coming up. So some really interesting Hurricane Ian facts. We'll start with Ian because Ian is the worst hurricane ever hit Florida. Ian made landfall west of Fort Myers on September 28th of 2022. It was a Cat 4 hurricane with 150-mile-per-hour winds, making it the fifth strongest storm not to strike Florida, but anywhere in the United States. So Ian was historic and epic and absolutely catastrophic. Ian was responsible for 150 deaths. This is why education is so important. Over $112 billion in damage, making it the costliest hurricane in Florida's history and the third costliest in the entire country, in United States history. So Ian will go down as one of the most devastating hurricanes of all time. The eye of Hurricane Irma, again, incredible. Let me go back. I want to show you this right here, just to give you a lay of the land. This is Cuba. So here's the eastern edge of Cuba. And then you see Florida lurking right here, the Florida Keys, the Bahamas over there. A very impressive storm. The thing about Irma was it was huge. The size of it was amazing. So there was a lot of wind extending out of it as well. Some storms are more tightly wound, so the wind field maybe doesn't get out as far, but Irma was a big one. And there was a lot of wind over a large area. So Irma facts, again, really interesting here as we look back. It hit Florida as a Category 4 hurricane on the morning of September 10th, 2017. Does everybody remember that? Was everybody here? So many power outages. It was absolutely incredible. It made landfall around Marco Island, so around, to our south. So we didn't get the onshore wind so much here. Most of our wind with Irma was actually around our area, was blowing east to west, so it was blowing that water out. But Irma became a rare Cat 5 hurricane on September 5th with maximum sustained winds. Think about that, 185 miles per hour. We had gusts yesterday at 40, 45, and it was, a little bumpy out there, right? It made for a windy day, but 185-mile-per-hour winds is the strongest hurricane ever observed in the Atlantic Ocean, in the open Atlantic Ocean, in one of only 5 hurricanes with measured winds of 185 miles per hour or higher in the entire Atlantic basin. So Irma was absolutely incredible. In fact, the word Armageddon was coined to describe all of the damage that occurred from Irma. So Armageddon was what many people referred to it, and wow, did it touch so many people. And we'll talk a little more about that. I'm going to show you the animated satellite image right here. And here you see the storm as we look at Idalia. I'm sorry, that's a look at Idalia. And that storm there made landfall as a Cat 3. Still winds of 125 miles per hour. Of course, this was last year in August, part of the peak hurricane season. August, September, October is that kind of zone where temperatures in the ocean are the warmest, and that's one big reason why that's peak hurricane season. It was the most powerful hurricane to hit Florida's Big Bend since Hurricane Easy in 1950, and the third strongest landfalling hurricane in that area, only after the 1896 Cedar Keys hurricane and the aforementioned Easy. So it was historic as well last year, even though it was just off our coast and had much less impact here. It still had some, but it was really significant and really historic in that part of Florida. There were still 12 deaths attributed to the storm, and this was with a lot of notice that the storm was coming. So it just shows you the danger still of these storms. Most of the fatalities was caused by rip currents and rough seas. Water is always our biggest concern, our biggest threat from these. A lot of people think it's the wind because when you go through these, and even if you're inland, you hear the wind, you see palm trees getting knocked down, you see all kinds of damage outside, but it's actually the water we're always most concerned about. The estimated damage from Idalia, $3.6 billion, most of it in the Big Bend area. Okay, so here's the eye of Hurricane Idalia, and I want to point this out. You see it right there. Look how far off our coast this is, 110 miles from the mouth of Tampa Bay, 110 miles from the west, but yet we still had a lot of impact here. And look at the eye. That thing went through an eye wall replacement. It weakened a little bit just before landfall. Thankfully, in the Big Bend area, it would have been worse, but this is what it did still locally. That's St. Armands Circle right there. It put water up in the streets, up on the sidewalks, and inside the stores and restaurants in St. Armands Circle. 110 miles to our west. Wasn't even near a direct hit, and we still saw that kind of flooding. Here's Tampa. Again, this is from Idalia, 110 miles from the coast. out to the west, and we still saw this kind of flooding. Now, we do want to point out some things we are doing right. One of our sponsors is Hunters Point by Pearl Homes. And the reason we want to show you this video is because this is, again, during Idalia. But this community right here, by the way, they also do solar. They're getting global attention for the work they're doing with the environment, because these homes produce more energy than they consume with all of their solar power and things they're doing out there. But they also, look how much they build this up. And this is key going forward. We have to build up. We cannot be 5 feet above sea level anymore. And they're built up very nicely, and their residents stay nice and dry. So we just want to point out some of the things that we need to do, and then some things people are doing right. And this is Marshall GoBuddy, by the way, that runs this, and he was a climate champion for the work he's doing. So we do have some great local people that are doing amazing things, and we always want to point that out and help show the way to the rest of us of the kinds of things we need to be doing. This is Longboat Key. Again, how far is this storm away? 110 miles. Imagine if the storm was closer, 50 miles. The difference here would be even more devastating. Of course, a direct hit would be incredible, and we'll talk more about that. But these are, guys, storms that are so far off the coast, they're more powerful. The sea level rise, right? The water's at a higher starting point. If the water's 9 inches higher than it was 50 years ago, it's at such a higher starting point, the storm surge is now worse instantly. And it just gets worse and worse as the sea level goes up, and these storms get stronger because of our warming climate and the higher water. Let's do some lessons that we've learned. And then at the end, I'll leave you with some great facts to prepare for the hurricane season. But one lesson we learned from the ice storms, Irma, Ian, and Idalia, the names we shall not say. Idalia in Sarasota County saw more than $2.7 million in damage. 18 structures were destroyed. Over 1,000 had major damage. And again, this is with the storm 110 miles to our west. St. Armands Circle, we showed you the video, saw a foot of water into the businesses and homes. Storm surge flooding in Sarasota County, damage and closed roadways. Casey Key Road, you see a picture there, a Minnesota Key Road, washed out by the high water, and that picture is incredible. The intersection of US 41 and Fruitville Road, you know, the traffic circles right in that area, had to be closed due to the flooding. And it floods down there, right, Bob, at the traffic circle? We'll talk more about that. But again, this is, you know, a lot of the work we do, trying to work with local leaders and decision makers to make sure we're planning for this higher water and these stronger storms, so we don't see so much of this threat, because we have to do this going forward, guys. Lesson number 2, storm surge is enemy number 1. I mentioned the water. You run from the water, you hide from the wind. And that's the same, because water is the scary part here. This is the marina in downtown Sarasota. Ian's surge of at least 13.8 feet along Fort Myers Beach is the highest surge ever recorded in Southwest Florida, of records going 150 years back. The National Hurricane Center estimates 10 to 15 in total, but that was the measurement. And Bob's going to have an incredible video later, but 13.8 feet. So for you to put this, you know, in something you can relate to, if you're standing here, the water truly would be 13.8 feet over, not necessarily over your head, but from the ground. That's how high it would be. So it would probably be over that ceiling. We'd all be way underwater. And it's not just we would be in water like a pool. This is raging water as it's blowing in from the ocean. Irma produced a maximum storm surge of 6 to 10 feet above the ground. Thankfully, most of that was in the unpopulated area south of Naples, because that storm veered right quickly and came in around Marco Island. So remember I showed you that onshore flow, kind of if it's coming in this direction, it's going to be in this zone right here. So that was the unpopulated area. So most of the storm surge with Irma, thankfully, was in an unpopulated area. But that is definitely our biggest concern, is the storm surge. Now, if you imagine Irma going a little farther north, maybe into Tampa Bay, anywhere a little farther north, then you have the onshore winds. You have that storm surge coming in here. It would have shoved 6 to 9 feet of water into parts of Fort Myers, Naples, Sarasota, Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg. We'd have all been under that kind of water. And when this water comes in, it doesn't just come in and splash against the beach. If 10 feet of water comes in, it's going to come in inland until it finds ground higher than 10 feet. Okay, so that water will come in quite a distance inland as well. Since the eye of Irma was already inland when it started going north, it tracked over Sarasota and Tampa Bay. The winds are actually moving east to west. And that's why I mentioned it was blowing the water out to sea. The water at the beaches was getting lower. Tampa Bay emptied out. Sarasota Bay emptied out. Look at that. This is Sarasota Bay. A couple of manatees got stranded out there. It's kind of a devastating picture. Good news, though, this will warm your heart a little. There were 5 guys down there, 5 friends. I think they were visiting town, and they heard that Sarasota Bay was empty. And so they decided to go down and check it out. And then they saw this. And they called in some officials from Sarasota County, Florida Fish and Wildlife, and these 5 friends. They went out there and they were able to get both manatees. They saved them and got them out to deeper water. So the story does end good. But isn't that incredible? Absolutely amazing. So hurricanes, it depends where that eye comes in. If it's onshore surge, devastating, raging, or something like this where it's weird, the water's blowing out. So a lot of things can happen with these hurricanes, and that's why you want to really be prepared and be educated. And then while the storm is happening, listening to, our local information, whether it be from media or local emergency managers. We have so many people working so hard. So the information's out there, but you want to be educated and prepared. So when these things are going on, you already know what's happening. This is flooding at Longboat Key here from Hurricane Idalia. Again, well out to sea. And look at that. So just incredible. Again, to help you visualize storm surge, there's a 6-foot storm surge. So imagine being out in that. It's well over your head. It's floating cars. The power of this is amazing. There's 9 feet. Remember, Fort Myers, 13.8, maybe up to 15 in some unmeasured areas. So storm surge concern, you're going to hear us talk about that more than anything, and that's why. It can sweep homes off their foundation. It can flood riverside communities. It can get well inland. We saw epic floods inland recently as well, and I'll show you some of that. Storm surge can break dunes and levees that are there to protect us, but that kind of water coming in, it's got so much power. And, I talk about water being the most dangerous thing. 90% of all tropical cyclone deaths, tropical cyclone is, a hurricane, tropical storm. But 90% of all tropical cyclone deaths are from water, most by drowning, either in the storm surge or flooding or high surf. So we really have to respect storm surge more than anything. That's one thing you want to watch. This is the power of storm surge right here. So again, 13.8 feet in Fort Myers was measured. That's the aftermath. So there's the barrier island there. And just that wall of water came in with incredible power and basically destroyed everything in its path. So you can imagine some people that don't listen to evacuation orders, they get stuck in that. Maybe they don't think it's going to happen. Maybe they've never had it happen to them before. That's why it's deadly and incredibly dangerous. So we have to make good decisions. We have to be educated, but just incredible. And now it's a long rebuilding process. They've done so many great things down there trying to rebuild. It's costly. It's, life risking, obviously, but it's a long way back what it used to be. All right, lesson number 3, know your zone, know your home. So this is part of being prepared. You want to know what evacuation zone, if any, you live in. Many of us, if we're near the water, we're going to be in an evacuation zone. If you're inland a little bit, you may not be. My house that I built in 2020 is way above sea level. And I'm only a few miles from the bay, but I'm in a place where I'm not in an evacuation zone. And, that's a good place to be when these storms come, because I don't have to worry about that. I just have to worry about the wind, which generally we can shelter from that. And then things like, will I lose power, and all the amenities we're used to. But know your evacuation zone. It's really important. You can just go to Google, type in, find my evacuation zone. You'll see many. I think the county has them, Florida has them. You'll see plenty. But type in your address, and it'll tell you, if you don't know already, what your evacuation zone is. And I know also NOAA has been working on these as well, and maybe these may change a little bit here and there. So just get the latest information if you haven't looked in a while. But if you're in an evacuation zone, listen to the local officials when the evacuations come out, because you may say to yourself, I've been through so many storms, it's okay, I can survive this. And then you get hit with what happened in Fort Myers. They've never seen that before. We've never seen that before. The highest storm surge ever recorded. So, so many people there, they had no idea. And look how many people move here every year. They just have no idea. So help spread the word, make sure people are prepared. It's a real simple thing to do. And when you know this in advance, it just takes stress away. And then you have your plan and you can just react on that. Watch it develop and do your plan. But you don't want to be suddenly trying to figure out what evacuation zone you're in, where am I going to go, what am I going to do? That's too much stress and pressure. We want to alleviate that. So if you're in an evacuation, or if an evacuation order is not issued for you where you live, that's when you may consider sheltering in place. It's run from the water, hide from the wind. Lesson number 4. Inland areas can flood too. Right, Elizabeth? She knows about this, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But even Orlando, I mean, does it feel any safer in Florida to be than Orlando? I mean, they're kind of right in the middle, close. They saw so many areas that went underwater. That is a picture of Orlando, nowhere near the beach. They saw almost 2 feet of rain out at the airport. For parts of Orlando, this was a 500-year flood. A 500-year flood means this is the kind of flood you would expect statistically once every 500 years. So never in most of our lives, right? Never in maybe 5, 6 generations, maybe once in that time period. Here's the thing though, with climate change, warmer temperatures, warmer water temperatures, stronger storms, heavier rain events, a 500-year flood may no longer be a 500-year flood. It could be, I don't know statistically. Imagine if it becomes a 100-year flood. Now, almost everybody's going to see this at some point in their life. I don't know where the numbers can go. There's a lot of uncertainty with that, but that was incredible. We can flood inland too. Sarasota County, even more impressive. This is a 1,000-year flood. So 10, 11, 12 lifetimes would maybe see this once. Again, something none of us would see this level of flooding statistically in our lifetime. Absolutely incredible. So people inland need to be aware of what's happening as well. Lesson number 5, rapid intensification. I'm going to tell you what that is. It used to be kind of rare. Now it's common. I mean, I can tell you right now, I don't have Bob's forecast. It's hurricane forecast. It's secret. It's in lock and key in a suitcase out in the hallway. But I'll make this prediction very safely. You're going to hear rapid intensification a lot this year and next year and for many years to come. And what it is, it refers to when a storm's winds strengthen rapidly over a short time. So technically, it's when the winds increase at least 35 miles per hour in a 24-hour period or less, requires a lot of ocean heat. And we have that. I don't know if you guys heard, but the main development area of the Atlantic Ocean in January already had summer-like temperatures. Incredible. So the ocean's not cooling. It's ready to go. I mean, that Atlantic is ready to go right now. There are other ingredients that have to come together to get the tropical cyclone at this point, but that water temperature in that area is warm. The Gulf, we're at a time of year where it's starting to warm as well. And when these things come together, we really have to watch this. And we have to watch it more sooner than we used to. Hurricane season starts on June 1st, but, we can see storms in May. We can see storms even earlier than that. Bob, how am I doing on time here? I'm done. No, I'm not. Okay, so Hurricane Ian, you see, had a big rapid intensification period. Look at that. Went from 115 to 160 in 24 hours, and I showed you to what Idalia did. Quickly, I'm going to race through these, but I just want to leave you with a few products. There's the old hurricane cone on the left. The new one is on the right. We're going to have a new cone this year. It's an experimental one. Both will be available, but around August 15th, they're going to start this new one. The old ones used to show the colors around the coastal areas. It's just the warnings, the tropical storm warnings, the hurricane warnings, hurricane watches, tropical storm watches. The new one, I talked about inland, right? It's so important. Now shows all of the watches and warnings inland too. One thing that it does, it kind of covers up the cone. I don't know how that's going to go over with people. The National Hurricane Center says it's more important. We want that. So we'll see. The old cone used to show the extended period of the cone, kind of not colored in. The new one just does one big cone. So it will be interesting how this goes over. They're going to look for feedback from people, but that's the cone. Watch that. It's going to be a little bit different this year. Know your terminology. A hurricane watch means that hurricane force winds of 74 or greater is likely, but still uncertain. So you want to watch, right? You just want to watch it. But a warning means it's expected within 36 hours. When we get a warning, that's when we may see evacuations start to get issued, and you really got to watch that period. And basically, it's the same thing with a tropical storm warning and a tropical storm watch. The watch means it's possible. There's a lot of uncertainty, some uncertainty still. You can vary storm to storm. And then a warning means it's expected within 36 hours. Last thing here, since I'm getting the look from Bob to wrap it up. This is what, by the way, when you work in TV, you have an earpiece. It's called an IFB. And you right now I'd be getting screamed at by the producer saying, "Rap, Rick, rap." They actually do that in TV. So in TV, it's interesting because you have a button on your clicker that goes straight to the 7-day forecast. So if they're like rap, Rick, rap, because what happens is you only get so much time, and if I go over, I take time from who was ever next, what's ever left in the newscast. A lot of times it's the sports person, and then sports might get condensed, and then he hates me or she hates me. I want to talk about sea level rise. So important. Everybody's heard this issue, right? Sea level rise, but I'm going to help you see it and help you see it locally because it's so interesting. So we're going to take a look at a beautiful home on Siesta Key. This is 2016. Look at that beach. Look at the color of that water. Just beautiful. I mean, who wouldn't want to live there? 2018, we're seeing sea level rise, maybe some beach erosion to water, little bit closer. 2020, little bit closer. Look at the difference here between 2016 and 2020. And then here's current day. Okay, beautiful home. The water, though, under the pool now. That pool lives in the water in the Gulf of Mexico. It may be the only non-floating pool in the Gulf of Mexico. I don't know, but incredible. And you see the overhead shot as well. Siesta Key, beautiful. There's so many great houses over there. But you see visually sea level rise here. And it's important in so many ways. Especially with storm surge. Remember its impact on storm surge. There are some recent pictures as well. I've been in this house. It's incredible. It's beautiful. But you see sea level rise. So I just wanted to help you visualize sea level rise. And if you plan to buy a beachside home, just make sure you talk to Dr. Guillermo Franco, our insurance expert, because insurance is such an issue, right, for all of us, but especially along the water. But that's sea level rise, guys, in a visual way, right here in our backyard in Siesta Key. Okay, so we'll do some questions. I thank you for the extra time. Hopefully I didn't take that from Guillermo and Tom, but thank you, guys. If you have a question, feel free. You'll start this. Yep. Okay.
Don't go far.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick. That was an absolutely sobering, amazing presentation. Anybody who doesn't have goosebumps here is like, get with it. Oh, I just want to comment on one thing. Number 4, inland sea rise. I mean, inland deluge. Many of you know that I have a 1,100 acre, is this going? Yeah. Ranch out in Mayaca. During Hurricane Ian and afterwards for 2 weeks, the entire 1,100 acres was completely inundated. It became Mayaca Ocean out there. And it just underscores the need for us to think ahead, the decision makers, about keeping a lot of open space as a sponge for all of this inland deluge. So that's a cautionary tale that's personal to me. I thought I would share.
Yeah, I like
Before I open it up to questions from the audience, Rick, I'd like to ask you, from a climate point of view, do you think our community is evaluating risks from these storms as they become increasingly impactful on our communities? And what is one change in the way we plan that you would highly recommend?
Oh, I hope I say the right answers here. Bob's over here watching. No, Bob and I talk about this all the time. I mean, education's so important to us to make sure everybody's educated and understand it, new citizens, old citizens, because even if you've lived here forever, you see what's happening. It's changing. It's going to be different tomorrow than it is today. It's a constantly changing thing. It's going to be doing this for a long time. So we have to be educated and prepared. Infrastructure, stormwater drainage, stuff like that. These are things we have to work with. Planning of our community assets. Bob is on the Purple Ribbon Committee of the Van Wezel Performing Arts Center. And what are they, when they eventually build a new one, what are they going to do with the old one? And it's what, 5 feet above sea level? So there are water issues there. So we want to work with community officials, and Bob's doing that right now. So the Climate Adaptation Center has such a role with every one of you and everybody in the public as far as education and helping you adapt and knowing what's going on and translating everything, because there's a lot of complicated information, but we're very committed to doing that. And then working with local leaders, we want to expand that as well. So that's a big thing. And also maybe coastal restoration themes like mangroves and stuff like that. One thing that really helped Idalia bring down that storm surge was it's such kind of an old Florida wildlife. There's so many mangroves and stuff like that, and it absorbs so much of the energy from storm surge. And we don't really have much of that anymore, right? Because everyone's built houses on it. I don't blame them. It's beautiful, but more of that, makes seawalls or sounds, stuff like that. There's so many things we can do, I think, in that area that are important. And then making sure people know how to evacuate, when to evacuate, they understand, their evacuation zones. So there's a few things off the top of my head. And we will continue to do this year after year after year. We feel like we've said this a million times and we have, but it's just important to reiterate that every year to people and help them prepare.
Thank you, Rick. You have a question?
When Sarasota Bay or Tampa Bay empties, how fast does the water return?
Yeah, it is not. Is this not on? Okay. Oh, she'll give you that mic to carry around. Okay. Not that fast. I can't give you a precise number, but yeah, it actually takes a while for it to make it back, because you think about it, that wind's blowing in that direction for quite a while. And the process of those winds eventually diminishing as the core of that storm pushes north in this example, it's a process. This takes a while. And then the winds, veer and eventually shift the other direction. So it's not like it just came back, but there's some risk there. You see people go out and walk in it because it's like historic, right? And that's a little scary. So I wouldn't tempt Mother Nature on how fast that water will get back, but absolutely incredible. And I don't know, Bob, do you have a number on that? Like,
anyway, when the eye of the storm goes by, and let's say it's moving up the coast versus offshore, it blows the water out. But when it's onshore, it blows the water back in. And if it's a severe hurricane, the water comes in quite fast. I mean, in a matter of an hour, it can come in 5 to 10 feet in 1 hour. So if the storm is well off the coast, it's kind of slow, but if it's right along the coastline, it can come in very fast. And so that's why they do call it a surge, because you go from one extreme to the other. The eye is the key thing and where that is. And just on the south side of the eye, we get winds blowing onshore, sometimes well over 100 miles an hour, and the water just comes roaring back. So Rick is right. Most of the time it's quite slow, but in this one time, this is the thing we really have to be careful about, because it can roar back in.
yeah, and you don't want to be out there to give this the test of how quickly it comes back and sweeps you away, right?
I have a question about the geography.
Yeah.
We all know the most vulnerable areas, like along the Gulf, Lido Beach, Siesta, between the View and Marina Jack, brilliantly designed to be right flush with the water. But in the Sarasota area, are there areas that are substantially less risk because they are higher? I mean, you described yourself as having a place that presumably is higher and protected. What's the geography? Are there areas that are safer within the area, or do we kind of have to go to Atlanta to get away from this?
No, I mean, you even saw Hunter's Point, right? That's in Cortez. So that's probably, less than a mile from the beach. So, I mean, this is modern building as well, and building codes. And so, yeah, individual homes can be built up, and then your property is going to be protected. Individual developments can be built up. So many, though, along our coast, 5 feet or less. And we have a very shallow continental shelf at the beach. And so that doesn't get very deep, and that can enhance the storm surge as well. But yes, individually, there are places. And then I'm just a couple of miles east of the bay, and I'm built up, I think, 25 feet. So it'd be hard and no water's going to get me. It's not even an evacuation zone.
Good morning. Lourdes Ramirez with Protect Siesta Key, and I'm going out there arguing that we're having more flooding on Siesta Key. I get a lot of pushback from some people saying, oh, no, it's natural. It happens all the time, or it accretes and the beaches accretes and not. So is there any database we can, have or out there that we could look at the increase of flooding? Because I know personally I've seen it, but
Sure.
I need statistics to prove our point. Is there anything we can refer to that says these areas are increasingly having flooding that they didn't have before?
Well, one thing we have is a great graphic about the higher sea level, what it is compared to just a few decades ago, and then what the projection is for the next 30 years. And so, I mean, if it's starting 9 inches higher, any storm surge, anything that blows, you're going to have more flooding. So that's just something I think you would have to explain to people. And then as far as amount of floods, I think there's that data is going to be available to some degree. If you go search that within, the county, the NOAA, you should be able to find that. But if you need help looking for that, send me an email and I'll help you out with your project. That's what we do. I mean, we're here to serve you guys and help you. So yeah, send me an email and I'll help you out. Okay. And this is the last question. Last question. Big pressure for the last question. You ready?
Couple questions.
She
When
wants to
I-
know where I got my jacket. Okay.
we bought a house in 2017. Half the house was in zone D and half the house is in C. So now we're in B and C. So if we have to evacuate, we have to go to our living room.
Ah. Boy, this doesn't feel like a good plan to me, but go ahead.
However, yes, exactly. So zone A evacuates, and it's a pretty well-known fact that if you're asked to evacuate and you're in B and C, you're going to get stuck in traffic. And that's a big fear for people. And I've known a lot of people who get stuck on freeways, get stuck in areas, and they're flooding. What's being done to help people get out?
Well, I mean, education is huge for one. You have to have a plan. You have to be prepared. A lot of times you'll get 24 hours notice, sometimes less, and sometimes more, but you have to be ready. And that's key. You're ready and you act. If you wait, then you're with a lot of other people that have waited. Now you're in more traffic and it gets more stress. This is the thing about not having a plan. So have the plan. As far as what are they doing? Evacuation plans and zones is an ongoing thing that we will constantly have to work on. As more people move here and we get stronger and stronger storms, we're trying to get better at that and working with emergency officials and things to make better plans. But I think ultimately it falls on us to protect our lives, our family, our property, is to know where we are, to have our plan. And if you react on that right away, I think you'll avoid most of that.
So basically, if we're in zone B or C, maybe leave days before.
Well, I mean, if you're evacuated, yes. I mean, if you want to leave before an evacuation order, that's your own comfort zone. That there's nothing wrong with that at all. So I know that's an important question, and there's no perfect answer for that. But having a plan, being prepared, and making that personal choice, how soon you want to go, is up to you. But some want to play it safe, and then some want to risk it all, and most of us are somewhere in the middle. Okay.
All great questions, and I hope you feel satisfied with Rick's answers. Yes. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.